Hi, welcome. I'm Kate Hartley and I'm talking today about how we actually lose weight in our sleep. It is a well-known thing in the industry that you tend to weigh heavier at the end of the day and lighter in the morning. But why is that? Because bits of us don't suddenly vanish overnight. So how do we actually lose weight while we're asleep? So I'm going to cover that today, as well as a few tips to help you maximize your sleep, and also just go over briefly what actually happens in the body when we get a bad night's sleep or a string of bad night's sleeps, in the hope that you will actually think, okay, I do need to prioritize my sleep, because it is so key to our overall health on so many different levels. So first of all, how we actually lose weight while we're sleeping. The majority of that is because of water vapor or sweat. So when we're breathing out, if you breathe onto your hands, they feel damp, and that's water vapor. So over the course of a night, we're actually losing quite a bit of water. If you're menopausal and you're having hot flushes, you could be losing a shed load of water. When I was perimenopausal, hot sweats were no joke. But also, so when we breathe out air, we breathe out an atom of carbon dioxide as well. So carbon dioxide is 2 atoms of oxygen. Don't worry, this isn't going to be too scientific. And 1 atom of carbon dioxide, of carbon. And carbon actually weighs a tiny, tiny amount. But you imagine the amount of times you're breathing out over the course of an evening, sort of 7 hours of sleep. Generally, you are going to be losing around about 1 pound in weight, literally just by your respiration, by expiration, by breathing out. So that is one element of it. The other is vapor. While our body is asleep, it's actually really, really active. I think a lot of us think, oh, we go to sleep and it's just like oof, nothing for hours. That's when our body is repairing tissues, getting rid of bad cells, flushing our brains to help avoid creating those Alzheimer plaques. The body basically repairs itself. So that's another reason why it's so important to make sure that we are all prioritizing our sleep. It is not something that we can be ignoring. I think we're approaching, I hardly dare say it, but we're approaching the sort of festive season. And New Year, everybody thinks, right, I'm gonna join the gym, I'm gonna go on a diet, I'm gonna eat healthy and eat clean. But nobody actually thinks about prioritizing sleep. And sleep is the foundation of everything, and that will all make sense as I go through this. So water vapor expiration is one reason why we lose weight. Another reason is, I really hope my dogs aren't going to start barking now, is we have different types of fat in our body. There's the fat that you're probably aware of, the white fat, but we also have brown and beige fat in our bodies. Now, brown and beige fat actually help us burn up calories, whereas the white fat makes us store calories, so we don't lose weight as fast. But the brown and beige is really important to our overall health, but it helps us burn up calories. Now, when you are prioritizing your sleep, you actually create more of that brown fat, and it's been proven that some of our white fat also can be turned into the brown and beige fat by sleeping. Another thing to consider is sleeping in a cooler room. It's been scientifically proven that when you sleep in a slightly cool room, not a cold room, but just a cooler room, so sort of 68-ish degrees Fahrenheit, you'll sleep better, your body will rest better, but it also produces or stimulates the production of this brown and beige fat. So that's also really important to bear in mind. Ideally, keep your window cracked. Even in the depths of winter, I still sleep with my window slightly open. I love the fresh air, but if you've got a house that has heating on, most houses hold their heat fairly well, just to have that freshness coming through, but it does keep your room slightly cooler, and it does help you set up for a good night's sleep. So to encourage the production of the brown and beige fat is also really important. The other thing that you want to be able to do is to be aware of actually what happens chemically in your body when you are not prioritizing your sleep, because we all know that you feel better after a good night's sleep. But when we've sort of sleep deprived, particularly over the long term, our frontal lobe of our brain, doesn't operate as well. So the frontal lobe of our brain becomes more blurred. So that is responsible for like the decision making and impulse control. So if you're well rested, the chances are you may have a little piece of cake, but you're probably not going to have the second piece. Whereas if you're sleep deprived and your frontal lobe is a little bit blurry, it's much easier to think, oh, so what? I will throw caution to the wind. I'm going to eat the whole cake, or you might just have the second slice. But that continuously, it's not just the cake, it's the other things that you're doing. So, you know, maybe you have the extra snack bar at break. Maybe you had the extra pint in the pub. Maybe instead of going teetotal, you decide, oh, you'll do it tomorrow. Because it does set up this sort of system of poor decision making. And it's quite a hard rut to get out of until you actually commit to prioritizing your sleep. That sort of blurry frontal lobe is going to be with you, unfortunately. And just think, I mean, that's going to have a big impact on other areas of your life, because you're going to be less focused, you're going to be less productive. So it's not just about those decisions you make around food and drink, it's about your life in its entirety. So the other thing to bear in mind is we have two hormones which tell us that we're either hungry or we no longer need food, leptin and ghrelin, and those both get affected when we are sleep deprived. So we don't make enough leptin when we're sleep deprived, which essentially is responsible for telling us that we've had enough to eat. So if that hormone is in insufficient supply, we're always thinking, need to eat more, need to eat. Even though you're not hungry, your brain's telling you, because there's not enough leptin in the body, that you need to eat. And also, the other knock-on effect is, I'm sorry, this is the joy of doing videos at home. Muffle, come here. The knock-on effect of that is that the body will hang on to those calories as fat. So it won't convert it into energy, it'll store it as fat. Ghrelin is the hormone that tells us that we are hungry. But when we sleep deprived, we actually make too much ghrelin, because if we've not been asleep for long enough, we wake up with too much ghrelin in our system. And so, as well as having low levels of leptin, which tell us that we don't need to eat anymore, we've got high levels of ghrelin, which are telling us that we're hungry. So on top of having that blurry decision-making frontal lobe, we've got eating hormones which are really not doing us any favors at all. So it's really, really important to understand the chemicals that go on. Also, when we are sleep deprived, it affects how insulin, or the levels of insulin in our blood flow. Now, insulin is responsible for helping us deal with blood sugars, but we don't secrete enough insulin when we're sleep deprived, which means we've got more glucose sort of swimming around in our bloodstream. You probably already know that is a precursor or a risk factor for developing diabetes too, and also heart disease. But when we've got too much glucose floating around in our bloodstream, our body then also stores it as fat. That also has an effect on our cortisol levels, because cortisol is released when we're under stress, and having a bad night's sleep puts us under stress. Bearing in mind, you're probably also not making sensible decisions around food and drink, so you're getting nutritional stress too. So your body's getting a lot more cortisol released into it. Cortisol and insulin also have a relational, there is a relational pattern there too. So, and also bear in mind that around our belly, particularly when you go through the menopause, we have the fat around our belly has 4 times the amount of cortisol receptors than any other part of our body, which is why when you're under long-term stress, when you don't sleep well, you tend to get belly fat. And it's absolutely true. If you sleep badly, belly fat is where it's going to grow. You know, if you want it on your boobs, sorry, you've got to eat and work out and be healthy to get the weight where you want it to be. If you're sleep deprived, you're under stress, it's going to go on your belly. That's also, When we go through the menopause with the declining estrogen levels, that also has knock-on effects with our hormones, which is why it's even more difficult to lose that fat around our middle when we become menopausal. It's not impossible. It is doable entirely. It's what I focus on a lot in my online health and fitness club. So if you ever need that help, just get in touch with me and I can explain how it works. And you can see if you want to get involved with our online health and fitness club. But that's an aside to this. Also, melatonin is our sleepy hormone. So when we are not sleeping enough, we're not creating enough melatonin. Melatonin helps us produce that brown and beige fat that I mentioned earlier, which helps us burn up calories. So you can see there are so many different knock-on effects that have this interrelation, or sort of interwoven relationship that all falls back to sleep or bad sleep. It affects us on so many different levels. So on top of the actual hormonal reaction that happens in our body, on top of the blurry decision making that we have, we are also more likely to reach for carbs. Because when we're sleep deprived, our body wants fast energy. Our brains are really, really clever, and it knows that big bag of chips or crisps or the croissant or whatever it is normally refined carbs. The brain knows it's going to give you a quick fix. Well, again, that's going to put you into nutritional stress, which is going to increase your cortisol levels, which is going to bugger up your insulin levels and your glucose, and on it goes to the belly as well as you feeling pretty yucky because you're going to have a spike in your energy levels and then you're going to have that crash afterwards. And that also contributes to poor decision making. So it's a bit like a whirlpool, and it all starts, or you can put the plug on that whirlpool just by prioritizing your sleep. It is absolutely vital. So tips on how to help you prioritize sleep first and foremost. I hear so many people, and it drives me absolutely potty, who's, yes, you have to make time for the things that are important in your life. And for instance, if you're building a business, if you're a new mum or a new father, there are times in life where you're probably going to be sacrificing a little bit of sleep, but make sure it's as short a period as possible and support yourself in other ways. Maybe meditation if you can do it, maybe getting out into nature, because that's going to help with the melatonin production actually, and your feel-good hormones. But on the whole, sleep underpins it all. So avoid things like blue light, so the phone, my laptop, television, war films before bed, because the blue light has a negative impact on your melatonin, your sleepy hormone, and you frazzle your brain. It's really hard to go to sleep, even if you're dog tired, when you've been staring at screens all night long. I know Kindles are brilliant, or e-readers are fantastic, but again, unless you've got glasses which help get rid of that blue light, these do, thank goodness, or you've got a screen protector that helps filter out that blue light, make sure you dim the light on your e-reader if that's the only thing that you have for reading, or resort to the old faithful book. There's such an experience of reading books. I love books so much. I mean, I by my profession, I'm also a psychotherapist and a hypnotherapist, massage therapist. I've got books about the body and the brain and all sorts of stuff, as well as my online health and fitness business. I am literally surrounded by books. I love, love, love reading. And so I've got my e-reader just to try and save some trees. There is nothing like the experience of a beautiful book though. So do consider your paper options. Go and find one in a bookstore that recycles books or something, so at least it doesn't get burnt. Make sure you're sleeping in a cool room. Try and avoid things like caffeine from, say, 2 p.m. in the afternoon, because you may be one of those lucky people it doesn't really affect you too much. I can drink a cup of coffee up to about 5 o'clock and it doesn't affect my sleep, but a lot of people are very sensitive to caffeine. Some teas have caffeine as well, be aware of that. A lot of fizzy drinks have caffeine. They also spike your sugar levels. They also put you into nutritional stress. Avoid them if you can. What else is it? Avoid too much alcohol. A small amount is probably going to help you go off to sleep. Any more than a small amount will probably help you go off to sleep, but because your blood sugar levels are going to crash in the early hours, which is why you normally wake up after you've had bit of a session. You wake up in the early hours because you've gone into nutritional stress and those cortisol levels have raised and it's brought you out of your sleep. And for long-term calorie burn, if weight loss is something you're focusing on, you need to lift weights. Cardio is great. It's brilliant for your heart health as well. Detoxifying, oxygenating, makes you feel amazing. It's a really good endorphin booster. But if you want long-term weight loss, particularly when you've gone through the menopause, if you're middle-aged, and for men, if you're middle-aged, we produce less of our human growth hormone, as well as a myriad other things like collagen and elastin. Hence you get wrinklier, things start to droop. You want to be prioritizing your sleep because it helps boost the production of HGH, but you also need to be doing weight training because that helps to boost HGH. It also helps to strengthen your bones, it helps to strengthen your muscles. They will atrophy if you don't use them, which basically means if you're not working out, whatever muscles you may have are just going to keep getting smaller and smaller and smaller. Our bone health suffers as we get older. So you need an impact weight. Yes, cardio involves running, which is a great impact sport, but you also need things which are going to help keep your posture right, keep you nice and strong, focus on your core health as well. Weight training is absolutely essential. It should be in everybody's recipe for healthy living. Whether you want to be looking like an athlete or whether you just want to age healthier, weights should be an integral part of your training. Water, of course. Water is brilliant. Water is great just for general detoxing. Most of us do not drink as much water as we should. The best guideline to work out how much water you should have is weigh yourself in pounds, then divide that, and the answer divided by 2 is the amount of fluid ounces you should drink every day as a minimum. So if you weigh 140 pounds, you want to be dividing that by 2, and that would mean that you're drinking 70 fluid ounces of water. If you have a career that's really energetic or strenuous, if you're menopausal and having a lot of hot flashes, if you live in a really cold environment or a very hot environment, you're going to need to drink more than that. But it's just going to help flush everything through, and a body that's detoxified is going to have less stress, it's going to help you sleep better, and it will set you up for success. So first and foremost, focus on your sleep. Do not deprive yourself long term of your sleep because the knock-on effects, as I've gone over fairly lightly here, are enormous. But the great thing to remember is while you're sleeping, you're also losing weight. A body that weighs about 150 pounds burns up about 440 calories during a 7-hour period. And when you're doing weight training too, those muscles over that 24-hour period are helping you to burn even more calories. So just bear that in mind if weight loss is one of your goals. Sleep is the linchpin to it all. Build your foundation. Get your 7 to 9 hours of sleep, depending on what you need. You'll know because you'll work out what works best for you. And then build the other bits on top. Nutrition, workouts or exercise. Nature. Time for your brain, R&R. Time when everything gets turned off. And just as a quick tip, if you're one of those people who goes to bed, you're dog tired, you prioritise your sleep, you live a healthy life, you're well balanced, but for some reason you wake up at say 3-4 o'clock and you just cannot go back to sleep because your brain just fires up. I'm one of those people. Listen either to a meditation, get onto YouTube, listen to something soothing. I actually put podcasts on from my mentors. They are business podcasts. They're full on, really informative stuff. But I put it on a low level and I just listen. I don't look at it, I just listen to it. And as much as the content of those podcasts is really, really interesting, it gets me out of my head enough and I just go back to sleep. Within normally 20 minutes, I'm back off again. And the podcast just ends and I don't know when it's ended and I just wake up in the morning. So if you're able to do that, you might need to have headphones next to your bed if you've got a partner next to you so you don't disturb them, but it works like a treat. And just never make sure that you're charging your phone at the same time as having the headphones in. There were a few reports last year, the year before that, of people actually getting electrocuted because there'd been a surge in their electrical circuit, and with them having the headphones in, which was plugged in to the charger, which was plugged into the wall, it actually electrocuted them and killed them. So if you're doing that, make sure you're on battery power only. So I hope that helped, and prioritise your Zs. So important. Catch you soon.